sir. Good evening. I was hoping actually that we would be able to witness the swearing in. So given that I'll have to pop out as well after the first round of public comments, I really wanted to come not only celebrate, because I wasn't here through the first iteration, but I'm very clear that this is a huge night for PSEP and the optimism that we all have moving forward. So I was hoping I'd be able to come and take some pictures, everybody get sworn in, and we can celebrate the spirit of collaboration and what we'll be doing. But thank you so much for your time and your commitment. If you don't know, it'll probably be a lot. And it's not a lot volume-wise, it's a lot because of what's asked of you. And it's a lot because of the value in the work that you're doing. I think in order for this to work, it has to be impactful, which means it has to land somewhere. You don't put all your time and effort and energy into this and then it lands nowhere, right? So because of that, we have to ensure that we are equally committed to not only engaging, but when you do the work, it has to be passed on to me, and I have to commit as well to meet with you and engage with you to make sure that we not only spend our time coming up with these amazing recommendations, but we actually do something about it. So all of that to say, I know I only got like a minute or so, but thank you. I appreciate your service. Thank you for coming in the true form and spirit of collaboration and wanting to find common goals and making sure that we're moving forward from this day on.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will get into the business of the agenda. Thank you both for your comments. There's four main things that we want to make sure we get through tonight. So I just want to list those now so that folks are kind of oriented to what the agenda describes. One is we want to review the bylaws and possibly have a motion for a vote. We want to have a presentation on the PPV survey, what's happened in the past and where it stands now. We want to have elections if the bylaws are passed so that certain roles can be filled. And we want to hear from the public. In 2 different public comment periods, we'll have time to hear back. So those are the things that we're looking to accomplish. We have some time to do it. At this point, we're going to review the bylaws, and it's broken into 3 parts. The first part is just to review. The PSEP members have worked over several meetings to try to create a template or a document that speaks to a lot of the things they want to see in the bylaws. We're going to review that at this point. We're going to invite the public to then give some comment. The PSEP will then be able to discuss the bylaws again, and should a vote happen, it would happen at that time. So with that, I would invite the PSEP and the members of the community to look at the packet that was available on the back desk. And I was thinking we could just go through this, if this works for all of you, just piece by piece, make sure that we're clear of what we're looking at, and if comments come up, that's fine at this point. We'll also hear from the public, which could influence the later discussion. On page 1, we just have some general information about the body being created and the purpose, the mission, and the goals. That comes straight out of the settlement agreement, so the PSEP did not spend a lot of time wordsmithing that. And I'll just say that should these bylaws pass, or any type of bylaws, they can always be amended and worked on. They should be a living document, so just bear with that fact. But for page 1, we discuss the purpose, the mission, and the goals. Do you folks have any comments or questions on that page?
Just under A, purpose, the description in the bracket should probably be moved.
Okay, so I'll make that note for the further conversation that might be a recommendation. Any other comments on the first page? I'm looking at the PSEP, I keep looking at the public, but at this point the PSEP could chime in. So let's go to the second page where we're looking at the sponsoring bureau is the mayor's office, the liaison is Nicole Grant. Mandy Hood is the project manager. Right now that duty is being filled by Judith Mowry, and they would advise to the elected in charge. Next, we talk about the city's role. The bureau will provide a staff person with technical support, which was just described. The frequency, one time a month each calendar year, and then the membership terms are described there. So I just want to make sure this speaks to the document that you all worked to create.
I do want to raise one question.
Yes.
Or just something to discuss. With all due respect, and we've already discussed this. In order for us to be independent of the mayor's office and the city of Portland, I think we should have some clarification as how long Nicole Grant is serving the role that she's serving as the liaison, or is she just the liaison for us to contact?
So the question would be, how long will that role be filled by the mayor's office? Right now, Nicole fills it, but are you wondering just about the role itself?
Right now, you've been told what? Yeah, how long will that? So Mandy Hood was our liaison, right? Project manager?
Let me pass this to Nicole to clarify that.
Okay.
So Mandy is formally the PSAP project manager. In my role, I'm just the senior policy advisor. I was working on PSAP in my capacity in the mayor's office. So in her absence, along with Judith Mowry, have stepped in to just provide assistance as needed. I'm not PSAP staff. That would be Mandy Hood, that would be Claudia as well, and also Judith. And so I think there needs to be a liaison. So if you have any concerns that need to go to the mayor, for example, or you'd like to meet with the mayor, there needs to be someone in the mayor's office to facilitate that. But I'm not, my role is not to be in the weeds or make formal decisions on your behalf.
And thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so the membership terms we just went through, some for 2 years, some for 1 year. The youth have been slated for 9 months. I believe that coincides with the calendar year. Keisha?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the youth being, 9 months. Not all of them are in school, so I think they should get a full year if that's available.
Okay, so that's something that should we move to adopt, that could be an amendment proposed to change that from 9 months, so I'll make a note that that conversation could happen. The terms right now are staggered, and right now the limit's going to page 3. Members may serve any number of terms not to exceed 8 years of total consecutive service. Completion of an unexpired term does not apply toward the 8-year cumulative. Just to clarify, when we came to that point, the example we were given is should an alternate come in to fill the place of a member, that term wouldn't necessarily count towards their 8 years. Is that how we remember it? Okay. And just take a few moments to review. I don't need to read word for word. I mainly want to make sure that the PSEP is something that reflects the conversations that we had before the public gets a chance to comment on it. I'll go to point D. There was a conversation there of what would be a quorum, and the quorum number would be 7, since there's 13 members. And so quorum would be 50% plus 1, so that would be 7. And then going to voting, the majority of seats. So the difference there is if you have 7 people, if 7 people show up, you have a quorum. For something to pass, you would still need 7 votes. So a majority of seats would signify a vote, not a majority of present attendees. So it's just a nuanced piece that we want to make sure that people understood. Flipping to page 4, general operating procedures. There's a piece in there about disclosing conflicts of interest, and people just want individuals to be very liberal. Anytime a topic were to come up where there's a conflict of interest, that people would be forthcoming about that. And there's some different examples of what that would look like. PSEP members shall decide how their meetings will be facilitated. Meetings will be conducted to foster collaborative decision-making. And then going to part 6, removal of members. It's all members serve at the pleasure of the elected in charge. And then if you go to B, if a member misses a meeting, the project manager will check in with the member to support them in attending future meetings. So if somebody didn't say in advance they were going to miss a meeting, then someone would follow up and make sure that everything was okay. It was decided that any member, according to these bylaws, any member who misses 4 or more meetings within a 12-month period would then be removed. And there's not a distinction between excused or unexcused. I think the spirit was that if somebody's not here, it's because they can't be here. And I don't think people wanted to weigh the value of that, but just said that to do the work appropriately, they need to be here a certain amount of time. And being removed for attendance does not mean that you cannot rejoin the PSEP at a later date when your schedule would allow you could apply again. There's a part there, reasons for removal, and then there's a piece of how the mayor, with consultation with the council, the PSEP project manager, and the PSEP chair could have sole discretion to determine if a member is no longer fit to serve. And then there's a resignation process mentioned in part B. And going on to 7, officers and subcommittees. So the idea here was that there would be a steering committee composed of co-chairs and secretary. And so that's what the proposal is right now, that there would be two co-chairs and a secretary, and the potential to add folks to a steering committee based on emerging subcommittees. So either a chair or a member of the subcommittee could then join the steering committee. It would be a one-year term, not to exceed 2 years in the same role. An elected officer may choose to vacate the position in order to best take care of themselves. The spirit there is that if somebody signs on for a commitment and decides they're no longer able to fulfill that commitment, then there would be no judgment or harshness about it. That would be actually a brave step that people would want to honor. So there's not a sense that if you take on a responsibility, you're not able to step back and make room for someone else. The designated leadership would be responsible for conducting their meetings and will also be voting members of the board. And then going over to page 6, it talks about the responsibilities. So I guess we talked about subcommittees. So subcommittees could then emerge to take on the work. When voting, the quorum for subcommittee members is simply the majority of the subcommittee, 50% plus one of greater number of seats. And just to be clear, that subcommittees would not be able to vote on things that would impact the entire PSEP. It would be voting on things to bring to the PSEP for consideration. So there was a lot of conversation to make sure that distinction was honored. The facilitator's role, they just listed some duties that would be important as far as ensuring a welcoming meeting environment, a safe environment for minority opinions, conduct meetings in a manner to foster collaborative decision-making. Timekeeping would be a priority, and facilitating public comment would be a key role. And then with communications, it's important, our members agree that transparency is essential to all deliberations in that regard. Advisory body members are required to notify city staff if they're going to be speaking on behalf of the PSEP in a public way.
I just want to make sure that it's understood that I had several complaints with this paragraph, mostly having to do with the fact that we do not explain what a lot of the words mean in this particular instance.
Okay.
You know, obviously a lot of the words mean very simple things, but when I'm looking at it, I'm wondering, okay, do I need my lawyer to be able to talk to the guy on the street corner about how he feels about police?
Right.
The police, you know, it makes me kind of worried.
So I do appreciate you've had those conversations. I'm wondering if you can figure out a way to articulate that to everybody when we come back to discuss this after public comment, so that the amendment needs to be made, it gets done at that time. That's good.
What section was that you were referring to?
I'm sorry? We're on communication, I believe. Is that true, Patrick?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then public meetings and records. Meetings of the full body and subcommittee meetings are open to the public and will be conducted under the provisions of Oregon Public Meeting Law. And then there's a description there of what that looks like. So at this point, I'm kind of looking at these 3 pieces of the agenda: review, public comment, and voting on the bylaws as one piece. So if it's acceptable to the PSEP, if there's no further comments just on what we just reviewed, I think it'd be appropriate to invite the public to give some feedback, and then at that point, the conversation can happen. We can then include their perspective. Is that okay? Like I said.
I'm sorry, in section 7, under officers and subcommittees, I still have a question mark around the steering committee. I feel that we are the steering committee and we drive it, maybe call it an executive committee or something, but we are fully the steering committee, and I don't think it should be separated.
Okay, and I'd like to call that out specifically. During the creation of this, it was noted that there was basically 2 options. One was to have a steering committee that would be composed of a co-chair, secretary, and possibly others. There was also an opinion that a steering committee would not be necessary, that you could still have the officers, but not necessarily tie them into a committee. At the point, the majority wanted to go forward with this version, so that's what we did, but we did want to reserve time for conversation so that we can be sure that both opinions are heard, and the public may also have some things to say about that. Okay, so I would like to, so I'm going to ask that, okay, so I'll make sure. So we did have two different sign-up sheets. One was for the comment in the first section on the bylaws. The next was for the second section on the officer nominees. If you signed up on both of these, you're covered. If you signed up on one and you're sure you signed up on the right one, that's great. If you signed up on one but you're not sure if you signed up on the correct one, I want to read the folks who signed up for this portion just so you can hear if your name is on there. If your name is not on there, you can add it. Right now we have 7 individuals. So what I'd like to do is offer 3 minutes per person, unless we have a huge wave of people come up right now. But when you read those folks, we'll try to limit comments to 3 minutes. If we can be brief, that's even better. If you're concise and can fulfill your point. And then also know that comments can be made in writing as well. So for this portion about the bylaws, we have Philip Wolf, Dan Handelman, Julie Ramos, Joe Walsh, Kaylee Okale. Can you remind me, can you crash off before? Lubin, sorry, my reading and handwriting is not very good. Ted Lubin and David Davis. Yes? Do you want to be on the next list? Not at all, okay.